Good morning, everybody. Let's get us a little bit closer. Perfect. And welcome to the Healership Path. I'm Rita Hickman, and this is Irma Francis. And we come to you Monday through Friday through live streaming on Facebook to work with healers and mentors and people who are looking to heal themselves and make a big difference in the world. So if you'd like to join our tribe, go to inspiremassage.com, sign up for our daily emails, and get a free membership into the Healership Path. So we like to cover topics that help move us all towards a happier, healthier, healthier state of mind.
Let there be light.
Let there be light. There, that's better. So today, Irma and I had a lovely group that came to the space last night, and of healers and people who are light workers and body workers and a whole nice variety of people who are on this healership path. And it really became, we really became aware of how important community is and how important that we be mentors for one another, that we help each other along this path, because we really can't do it alone. And which is why we're inviting you into our space and into our home so we can mentor each other and really come together and make a big difference. So, Irma, did you have any thoughts about building community or mentors today?
Oh, sure,
Cool.
sure. Our overall umbrella for Fridays is building community, but also that together we stand and divided we fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that is so true. I mean, here we are living in the United States, and we're not so united.
Right.
And it's what's going on in our country today kind of shows the importance of together we stand, divided we fall.
Mm-hmm.
Because we really have to unite as people to make a change in what's happening in our country. So, that's on a bigger scale, and to narrow it down to what we're doing in building community and the importance of mentors. I have a couple different things. When you're looking for your community, I think it's really important to trust what you're sensing, what you're feeling. I know for me, when I was looking for community, it really mattered to me that there was a sense that each person was seen as unique, and that there wasn't a specific teacher with a specific kind of dogma, kind of picking up where religion left off. That wasn't the kind of community that I was looking for. And when I was reflecting on our group last night, I thought that was a really good example of people that have done a lot of their inner work, who are now giving back to others, who kind of hold their own. So there was this mutual respect that was there in the room. And in a way, I felt like we were all being mentors for each other, in the sense that being a clear mirror, sitting in a sacred space of being unconditional, no judgment, and really listening and reflecting. And there was a real, I thought, a maturity in that. So those were a few thoughts I had on building community and mentors. I'm curious, how would you define a mentor?
A mentor for me, in the broad term, is anyone who has information or is further along a path than I am, that I can learn from, that can help guide me. Not necessarily a teacher, but someone who is an equal to me, and but they may have a little bit more experience in something than I do, and so they tend to mentor me. So most people end up being mentors to me in one shape or form, just because I feel there's so much still to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a culture where people really have special knowledge and unique knowledge to what they've been doing all of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm intensely curious about their stories and what they've learned. And so in small bites, they end up mentoring me quite a bit. In fact, a lot of my clients mentor me. And I mentor them.
Mm-hmm.
On a smaller scale, I will tend to choose a few people that I really respect, that I feel have understand the path that I'm on. I don't take advice well from many people because I really don't want their opinion. Because unless they've walked in my shoes, unless they have a really good understanding of where I've been and where I'm going, then they're projecting onto me what they think I should do,
Mm-hmm.
rather than sharing with me where they've been. So somebody really has to have some street cred if they're going to be a regular mentor for me in my life. If they haven't walked the talk, if it's just their opinion or what they see and without understanding the situation fully, then I'm grateful for an outside observation, but I'm certainly, it goes into the pot of information. I don't put as much weight for their opinions as I would for someone who, let's say if someone's dealt with codependency all of their life and they've reached a certain level of health and wellness, then I'll deeply respect their opinion on codependency, because to me, they have something that I really need to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking of myself and the mentors that I've had in my life, and there's been at least two that were really a big influence on my life. And the first one, my friend Jeannie, she was just this person of such a high intelligence that she never really used it as leverage. She was very careful with her intelligence because she really could have outsmarted just about anybody. But she was a person that a lot of people would have passed her by because of her physical appearance. Mainly because of her physical appearance. And if all the people that did pass her by because of that, oh my gosh, they missed out on such a gem. And I know for myself, I've never been one to make a judgment on the cover of the book. I always want to look inside the book and find out what's there. And when I did that with my friend Jeannie, who became a mentor for me, oh my gosh. What I gained from my connection with her. She ended up passing away about 12 years ago. And then a recent mentor that I've had for about 2 years. It was just this synchronistic connection that happened, almost like our souls brought us together. Mm-hmm. That our souls somehow knew that we had a relationship that was going to be so meaningful. And usually I find that what happens in the mentoring, it's really never one way. It's always teacher, student, teacher. It's always kind of falling back and forth. So yeah.
Somebody who is very close to me, who taught me quite a bit. When I first met them, they sent me a book in the mail. And the book in the mail was The Soul and the Sun. And it made a tremendous impact on me. And it was written by the gentleman who did Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh. And it was one of the little stories from that. And the story was about an angel who wanted to understand and really know what forgiveness was. And God didn't thought that would be too hard. He's like, no, you really don't want forgiveness. You can have any other experience you want, but forgiveness, you're just not ready for. And this little angel was so insistent. And so God finally relented and said, okay, I'll send you down and you can learn forgiveness. But before you go, we have to find someone who's willing to do the worst thing you can ever imagine to you so that you can forgive. And, the whole group of angels, they were all very quiet. And until one raised their hand and they said, I will be the one who does the worst possible thing to you can even imagine. Just please remember who I am. So that made a big impact on me about relationships and understanding that all relationships, mentoring or community, for our own spiritual and personal growth, they're designed to trigger us because we're intimate with someone. We're allowing them into our most vulnerable places. And so they're going to trigger all of the hard things to come to the surface. And if I can remember that I wanted that, I wanted someone to know me so intimately that they could shine a light in the dark places and help mentor me. Mm-hmm. I wanted somebody to be that person for me that had the ability to hurt me so badly that I could heal where that pain actually originated from, that belief in a separation from something bigger than me. Mm-hmm. So I actually started most of my deep mentoring relationships with people knowing full well that if I wanted to have any sort of real connection and real healing and education, that I had to be very vulnerable and that they would end up triggering me and bringing up a lot of pain. I walk into those things with my eyes wide open. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it gives me a level of detachment so that I can weather the healing process and weather the spiritual growth that mentor brings to me. Mm-hmm. Because I let them into the deepest parts of who I am. Mm-hmm. So mentoring, to me, the deepest forms always include massive healing. But on the other side of it, I've reclaimed parts of my soul. I've put balm and soothed the deepest wounds which control me. Mm-hmm. And to me, those are the really powerful mentors in my life, the ones that I've let in and they've agreed to be that angel for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what about building community? What's your thoughts? I know you've been doing that for quite some time in offering your space and offering a place for community. What are your thoughts on building community?
I had this conversation last night with someone who was in the group, and for building community, I want to attract, I want to let people know who I am so that the people who are looking for me can find me. So building community is more about putting myself out there and letting people know, hey, this is what we're doing. And the people who are seeking and searching and wanting that, then they self-select and they come into the community and the group. So my main job in building community is to get myself out there and let people know that this exists and share myself with them so that so that the right people can come together for community. Because if I try to force it, if I try to convince or coerce anyone to be a part of community, then they might not be the right fit. Mm-hmm. And if they're not the right fit, then it's not really good for either one of us. We get some great lessons out of it, but it's not as synergistic and as supportive as we hope community will be for all of us. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's about shining a light on who I am and the community that I want to grow, and letting the people who are looking for me find me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that word community part of that word is commune, which community also makes me think of communication. And communication and community, I think, are such, there's such a sacredness in that we somehow maybe don't honor and value for what it is, the importance that it is. Communication and community, I think, go hand in hand. So, so there's the in-person community, there's the online community.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see things coming together for the online community, for the virtual community?
Since we live in such a blessed age where we can finally find the people that that really vibrate or resonate with us, that we're supposed to have in our lives. You know, I think of my mom, who grew up in a very small town, and she had to leave because she just felt so lonely and so isolated in how she thought and how she lived.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so lucky to be able to reach out and make connections with people all over the world so that we can start a movement.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a virtual community is so critical, because those of us who, you know, are healers or sensitives in some way, you know, all of you who are probably watching this now, we've been very isolated in our world, surrounded by people who only want to think to a certain level. They aren't curious and interested in the deeper depths of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're able to come together online, virtually, it means that we can still give so much support and so much love to each other to keep us moving in the direction that we want to move in. So even though in-person community has so much beautiful synergy to it, I think a virtual community is critical for people who feel really cut off from their environment, you know, or from the people in their environment, just because they're, you know, they're a fish out of water. They're the ugly duckling, you know, trying to find their tribe or their community.
Right.
How do you feel about virtual communities?
Excuse me. I think it's almost a must in today's society, and there is such a gift in how far you can reach in the virtual community. There's something to be said for both, definitely, to have a physical in-person community, but the gift that comes from an online community is it's global. You can really search for your tribe globally. Something I thought of when you were just talking, and the importance of stepping outside of whatever your status quo has been. And a lot of times the family you're born into is a status quo, and it's okay, it's family, it's what family does. But it made me think of a movie, and I'm really showing my age here, but a movie and also a book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Sure.
And I just, whenever that came out, when I saw the movie, and who's the singer? Neil Diamond, I think, does the music. But yeah, about this seagull on an island with his, you know, his status quo group, and Jonathan just wonders what's out there. What's out there? Is there more to life than this island? So to me, it's like, is there more to life than the status quo you were born into or that you live in? And so that's when you kind of, you know, reach out and you start looking for, because in order to grow, you kind of outgrow the status quo. And that's when you start to seek and search and find people that will allow for that growth to happen.
Well, I know you've shared with me that you recognized you weren't part of the status quo pretty quickly in life.
Yes, very quickly. Yeah.
How did you handle that? You know, feeling that that everyone was marching to a different beat than you were?
It took me a long time to figure it out, and it was all growth producing. But I think when I reflect back, I didn't know at the time, of course, as a child you don't know, but that I was coming from a place of heart and soul, and also a place of love, and a lot of people around me were coming from a place of ego and fear. And so it was a lot of times like oil and water. It couldn't mix because heart and soul can't really merge with ego. Love can't really connect with fear. So it took me a long, long time to figure all of that out. And I've never been one who really likes to be in, as I, got older and went through corporate and decided to leave and move into what I do now, holistic coaching and spiritual mentoring. I've never been one to be a teacher. I don't like that feeling at all of being a teacher. So my approach is always reciprocation, mutual respect. I don't really ever put myself in any kind of expert seat or teacher seat. And there's, I think, a necessity for that because some people are looking for that. Some people are looking for that authority and a teacher. That's just not my particular style. So how did I deal with understanding kind of that I would never belong to a status quo? It was confusing for a while, but eventually I realized the absolute gift of freedom that I get from that.
I heard you touch on experts and last night we used the word gurus when we would talk about those things, and I know I had to go through a transformation for me because I believed so strongly. I grew up feeling very lonely, and because I felt so lonely, I ended up believing very strongly in community and family. It became a super, super high priority for me. And I had to learn how to be in a community and how to be a part of a family and what that means. And when that became such a passion for me of bringing people together, I also realized that everybody's at different stages. And sometimes people needed to feel very secure. So in some mentor roles that people have been for me, they've been the parent for me, and I've been able to be the child and have that experience, and vice versa, where I've been the parent and they've been the child. To relive these experiences and play these different roles just so we all can get a really good understanding of what it's like. I mean, I didn't have kids, so I didn't know what it was like to be a parent. And my family had a lot of challenges that they had to deal with, so I didn't know what it felt like to be really well parented. And so I had to go through these evolutions and these experiences where sometimes I was one, and then I was in the very same time period, maybe 15 minutes later, but with somebody else. I was the opposite. And that gave me a really good, for myself, really good insights into what all these different roles are and how they relate to the world. So sometimes I put myself in the expert seat because I know it can provide comfort. It can provide a sense of security to help people along their path, because I know religion provides that for a lot of people. It gives a structure so that they can focus on the things that are most important to them, and there's a structure or a path to follow, and they don't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they can focus on what matters most to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I've played a lot of different roles in a lot of different situations, and so sometimes, yeah, I'll be the expert and I'll be the guru, always knowing that it's simply a role I'm playing as part of somebody's journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I get that. And I get the necessity of role playing and the different experiences of the. I would call it like an ego state, because I don't know that heart and soul have roles. And so there's an importance for everything that a person has to offer from their experience. And for me, I really like to offer the experience of heart and soul, especially working with adults. I really want them to have the experience of what does it feel like to be in a place of this is unconditional. We're not in a role. We're not, there is no parent-child here. In fact, I really would like people to understand that after a certain age that you've done all the needed things that you need to do for your family and being an adult and all the responsibilities, I personally believe that there's another developmental stage, and that stage I call soulhood.
Right, we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
I love how you explain it.
Yeah, I really do believe that, when you've worked really hard and you've done your inner work and you've learned so much and done what you've needed to do to be a responsible adult. A lot of people retire and they kind of don't know what to do with themselves. So a lot of people, travel. Some people get depressed. They don't know what to do or whatever. To me, that's when you get to reap all the rewards and you get to graduate into what I would call soulhood, where you're really your own guide and you're tapped into that soul and you're in this place of love, truth, and freedom. You're free because you've earned it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much we really talk about, because we're living longer, healthier lives. Mm-hmm. There's this whole other stage of life. A lot of people are living, to 100 and more, right, and very healthy lives. So gosh, what if we have evolved to a point, because we're living longer, healthier lives, that we have this opportunity to add on another developmental stage beyond adulthood? Mm-hmm. I think that would be pretty darn awesome. I know that's where I live.
Well, and you had that experience of soulhood very early, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. So you've been living from that soul place, from that level, for a very long time. Yeah. So what have you learned over life, since you've spent a lot of time in that soulhood place? What is that like? For those of us who are aspiring for that, or so we can recognize it in our own lives.
It's like having a knowingness being tapped into, and it's not just soul, it's heart and soul, because the heart is the human experience. The soul is a connection to something maybe seems like beyond the physical, but it's also a complete soul incarnation. So it becomes physical when it's embraced and acknowledged. So to me, my life being connected to that has been, what's that one song by Sting, Let Your Soul Be Your Pilot. Mm-hmm. My soul has been my pilot, my guide, my navigation system. And so things are always, as long as I'm in that, I'm right on target. I'm just right on target. I'm guided all the time.
You just lit up when you talked about that. So, so being in that soul place feels like joy and bliss and light.
It's actually, I personally think it's a dimensional place. It's a place.
Okay.
To live in, and it's dimensional. Because when we're looking at life through the ego state, I don't know that there's never ever enough for the ego. I think the ego's always looking for more and better and back. The heart and soul, that's not the experience of the heart and soul. So there's a completeness in that. There's it's a dimensional place, a place of love, truth, freedom, joy, grace, connection, love.
I watched a documentary on Timothy Leary and Ram Dass the other day about, and it was the end of Timothy Leary's life, and he was working through grief and the dying process, and Ram Dass was with him, and they had differing opinions because Timothy Leary didn't necessarily believe that there was a soul, and Ram Dass did. And Ram Dass believed that the soul could be located and pinpointed in the body. He felt it was about the size of a thumb, and it was kind of right on the inside of your heart space.
Wow.
So is that heart space kind of its own dimension, that if we became very, very small and brought our consciousness into that, is that kind of where the world of the soul might be within us, and then we dive into that reality? It's like this microcosm that we, become little people in.
I don't know. I mean, it could be.
Or is that like a gateway to the dimension of the soul? So is our soul a doorway to the dimension of what you were talking about, that it was the soul is an actual dimension?
Yeah, I definitely think the heart and soul is a gateway. And when you make contact with that, yes, it is a gateway that opens you up to the dimensions of love, truth, freedom, joy, grace. And the actual defining it, which I find this absolutely intriguing. If you take the word God, if you take the word soul, I think the minute, and those, that it's a dimensional place, the minute you try and define it, it goes away.
Okay.
If you think about grace, and moments that you've felt grace, the minute you turn and see it, it's gone. So it's being open. It's just being open and in a place of openness and love, and without the mind trying to define what the experience is, just allowing the experience to be what it is. Because I think all the beautiful things in life, all the beautiful experiences, the minute we try and capture them through definition or labels, we take the beauty away. I don't know if that makes, I know that's absolutely true. I know that everything I just said is a real truth. I don't know how well I was just able to articulate that, but yeah.
Do you think that's where the idea of nirvana came from? Is from that soulhood place of all possibilities and openness and love and compassion and joy? Do you think that was people's attempt to explain what that soul place was?
Sure, I'm sure Nirvana. I'm sure that poets, musicians, artists, these creative avenues that's what they're trying to express as well. So yeah, I think we get glimpses of what I was just talking about, and then we try and express that, because when you experience something so beautiful, the first thing you want to do is share it with people.
Now, do you think that mentors can help people walk through that doorway or gateway into that space and that experience and that dimension?
Yes.
And how do they help them do that?
Well, I know for me, it's just being in it myself, and there's like an energetic attunement that happens. And that's how we are as human beings. We're so empathic that we're doing that all the time, which is the blessing and the curse, because we can also attune to really dark, heavy, negative energies as well as light, beautiful, loving energy. And to have the awareness of that and the importance of what energy am I bringing?
Now, I know some philosophers believed that the darkness and the light were equal, and they came together and they lived together in that soul place. That the suffering was an integral part of the bliss and the expansion. And so, in fact, for some philosophers, they believed that the suffering was a path and a very powerful path to get to that place.
Yeah, of course.
And so they embraced suffering, and they embraced, the dark, painful emotions and the negativity and the hurt, because they felt that lifted them up or launched them in some way into that soulhood place. Now, how do you feel about that?
I feel that if I didn't have the contrast of my confusion of why isn't everybody in bliss, I wouldn't have appreciated bliss. I wouldn't have had without the contrast, I wouldn't have known the blessing. Without the curse, I wouldn't have known the blessing.
So they're valuable, they depend upon one another.
I think so, yeah. I mean, even, Buddhism, the first, I don't know what it's called in Buddhism, but life is suffering. I don't think that means life is an ongoing, endless suffering. It means to embrace your suffering and to grow from it, learn from it by the embracing of it, not trying to bypass it. Big mistake we make in the United States, because there's so many distractions that can easily allow us to spend an entire life bypassing our suffering. Because of all the comforts that we have, and all the distractions, and all the alcohol, drugs, relationship, consumerism, on and on and on and on, that we can be users in our entire lives.
Well, one of the things that occurs to me is I work with a lot of people who are in pain, severe pain, and I was reminded of that this morning because I've been having a very high oversensitivity on one of my teeth, which is really painful. And my willingness to take my Advil every 4 hours in order so I don't feel that pain, and to use clove oil to help numb it as well. I embraced the pain for a little bit, and then I said, okay, enough of this. I'm not putting up with this anymore. And I know I work with so many people who are in extreme pain, and because of that, they would love to be able to embrace it and live with it and be okay with it, but it's just too uncomfortable for them to be able to live any sorts of life, or to cope, or to be present and loving and listen, because they're so distracted by how uncomfortable they are. So for me, I see this balance of, especially with my tooth today, thinking, yes, suffering is wonderful, and I don't want to continue suffering if I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I don't want to not take the painkillers and not numb it out a little bit. I want to keep it manageable so it challenges me but doesn't overwhelm me.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, some philosophers believe that, you know, when you're overwhelmed by that pain, that's where the true insights and understanding and you really, your soul really evolves through that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know so many beautiful, evolved women who've gotten there because they suffer chronic pain.
Yeah, yeah. We had a woman in our group last night who happens to be a really good friend of mine. She's a beautiful person. She talked about having a spontaneous awakening, and she also talked about what kind of opened that door for her, and it was that extreme pain of fibromyalgia that she lived with. She was taking Tylenol with codeine, and her awakening came from being in so much suffering, so much pain, the load of the life that she had created becoming so heavy that she became ready, consciously or not, to let go.
And I think that's when mentors come into our lives, is when we're ready to make that shift, then they magically appear. And, you know, there's so many sayings throughout time about that. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, and all that neat stuff.
Right.
So, yeah, we have to get to the point of where we surrender and say, okay, I can't do this by myself. And that's where community comes in.
Yeah.
When we stop trying to do it by ourselves. And I think the more often we do that, the more often we surrender and look for community and support and love, the easier it becomes. You know, the first time's always hard because it's an unknown and it's very scary. But every time you create community again and reach out again, it becomes easier and easier to become a part of this bigger whole.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we only have a few minutes left. Was there anything you wanted to wrap up with?
Yeah, there was something that just popped into my head, and the importance of community and how I sense community is a circle, that there is not a specific leader in community, that it's very Native American. I am part Native American, maybe that's why I love the idea of a circle, because it's reciprocation. It's there isn't somebody at the head. And to me, that's what community, if I were to say, have to choose a symbol of what symbol defines community to you, Irma? The circle. Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to be a part of our members of our group, of our tribe, go to inspiremassage.com and sign up for our daily emails and join us for our daily Monday through Friday live streams, because we'd love to have you on there. And if you have any comments or questions, we'll address them in the emails or a future video. So we certainly are thrilled that you're with us, and we know that we're all on a really great path, and I'm looking forward to all the amazing things we'll create together. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.